This year, there have been a ton of NHL players and teams really exceeding expectations and having a phenomenal year, and on the channel we focused a lot on the good, but in today's video we're going to focus on a little bit of the bad, and I'm going to talk about 5 players or teams that I think have been disappointing so far this season. I'm not hating on these teams or players, I just think that they can all play a lot better than they have been so far this season, so without further ado, let's get right into the video. Starting the video off with the Anaheim Ducks. Now, this is a team that came second in the Pacific Division last year, 44 wins, 25 losses, and 13 overtime losses for 101 points. Like I said, second in the Pacific Division. An amazing season last year for the Ducks, and this year they haven't even came close to what they were last year with 22 wins, already more losses than they did all of last year with 26, and 9 overtime losses for 7th in the Pacific Division. And over the past month, they've kind of been the laughingstock of the NHL. They finally fired their head coach Randy Carlyle, which I think was the right decision. I don't think he was the right guy for the situation. I honestly feel bad for John Gibson because I feel like he's one of the best goaltenders in the entire league, and he doesn't really get much help playing for this Anaheim Ducks team. And one thing that I think has been very disappointing for this team so far this year is usually when you have a bad team, you have some young guys that are having really good years, and that just makes it all worth it, something to look forward to. But a lot of the players on the Ducks have just had bad individual seasons as well. You look at Rickard Rakell, who's supposed to be the next face of this franchise, just 9 goals in 44 games for 26 points. He has been injured a little bit, but still 9 goals in 44 games from a guy who a lot of people thought could score 40 goals. Hasn't been very impressive. Getzlaf, it seems like he's starting to regress a little bit with just 36 points in 51 games. Andre Kasher, though, has been good with 11 goals and 9 assists for 20 points in 30 games. Daniel Sprong's been relatively solid since they acquired him, but the Anaheim Ducks really just don't have much going for them this year, and it's been a relatively disappointing year, and obviously they can't be good forever because it seems like they've been one of the powerhouses of the league over the past decade, but it seems like they're slowly heading towards rebuild. Next up is Casey Mittelstadt of the Buffalo Sabres. Now, in a lot of people's eyes, this probably isn't really fair to put him on this list because he's just a rookie. I think it's just me personally. I had such high expectations for Casey Mittelstadt this season, probably unfairly, that I've been a little bit disappointed with his play so far. In the summer, I actually said he's probably a 1A, 1B kind of prospect, tied with Elias Pettersson, but we all know that's not the case, and Pettersson is obviously the much better player. I realize that now, but in the summer, I really thought that they were pretty neck and neck, and I thought Casey Mittelstadt could even contend with Pettersson for the Calder Trophy this season, but Pettersson has just ran away with that. And last year, he played in 6 NHL games after his college season ended. He had 1 goal and 4 assists for 5 points and was a +1 on a pretty bad Sabres team. That's why I think I had such high expectations for him. I was very impressed by what he did in his 6 NHL games. He had an amazing World Juniors, but this year in 55 games, he has just 8 goals and 11 assists for 19 points for a -5 rating. I thought Casey Mittelstadt was going to be a perfect second-line center behind Jack Eichel for this Buffalo Sabres team this year, but he really just hasn't been, and obviously I don't think he's going to be a bad player by any means. I still have really high hopes for him for his career. I just thought he would have a little bit better of a rookie campaign than he has so far, so that's why I have him on this list. It's probably pretty unfair because he is a rookie, but like I said, I just had really high expectations for him, and I've been a little bit disappointed watching him play so far this year. Next up is Patrik Laine of the Winnipeg Jets. Now, a lot of people probably won't agree with this. You know, how can you say a guy with 25 goals in 57 games is having a disappointing season in just his 3rd year? But this is supposed to be a guy who's, you know, supposed to contend with Ovechkin for the Rocket Richard Trophy, and he's just been kind of underwhelming this season. He's been very, very inconsistent, very streaky. He scored 5 goals that one game, and since then, I think it's been pretty downhill. Over the past 2 months, he's been in probably the biggest slump of his career so far, and when he's on, when he's scoring goals, when he's finding the net, he can be one of the most fun players to watch in the NHL, but when he's slumping, he can be one of the most least fun players to watch in the entire league. One of my best friends is a Winnipeg Jets fan, and I'm sure he's probably pretty disappointed with how Laine has played over the past couple of months, but I don't really think it's something to worry about just because of how stacked this Jets team is, and I definitely think Patrik Laine will get back on track. He's just in a slump right now, and what's really worrisome to me about Patrik Laine, you know, you can see in his first year, you know, he's been pretty good. He had 36 goals, I think, in his rookie season, and then last year, 44 goals was a +8, but this year, he's a -15 on the 3rd best team in the NHL, and I think that's pretty concerning. It seems like he's just really not engaged in the defensive zone. It seems like he just doesn't really try his hardest unless he does have the puck on his stick, so that's a habit I think that the Winnipeg Jets would, you know, probably prefer to get him out of, but all in all, he's had a really good career so far, 170 points in 212 games. Obviously, I think he's going to be one of the best goal scorers in the entire NHL for the next decade. This year, he's just been in a little bit of a slump, so that's why I've kind of been disappointed with Patrik Laine so far this season. The last player in today's video is James Neal. Now, James Neal has just been very disappointing so far for the Calgary Flames. You know, this offseason, they signed him to a 5-year, $5.75 million contract, and that really is looking like it could become one of the worst contracts in the entire NHL if this play from James Neal keeps up over the next couple of seasons. Now, I was a guy who thought James Neal was going to come in and be a huge addition for this team, take a lot of pressure off Gaudreau, Monahan, and those guys, but luckily for the Calgary Flames, they haven't really needed that because James Neal hasn't provided it, but like I said, they haven't needed it because they have one of the best top lines in all of hockey. Tkachuk and Backlund on that second line is amazing as well, so they haven't really needed James Neal to do too much, but you know, they definitely expected a little bit more from him, especially paying him so much money. He has just 5 goals and 10 assists for 15 points in 54 games. I thought James Neal was going to be able to score around 20 to 25 goals, and it's looking like he may not even hit 10, which would be very disappointing. I mean, last year for Vegas in 71 games, he had 25 goals and 19 assists for 44 points, but obviously last year it seemed like everything was just going right for Vegas. James Neal has had a very successful career so far though, with 757 games played, 268 goals, and 242 assists for 510 points, but it's looking like he's definitely starting to regress. He seems unengaged out there, but luckily this Calgary Flames team hasn't really suffered from that, but I definitely think if James Neal can get it going, you know, the last bit of the season, it would definitely benefit them, and if he can get it going in the playoffs, it would be huge as well, because you know teams are going to be locking in on that top line in the postseason, and you're going to need the depth scoring. So hopefully for Calgary's sake, James Neal gets out of this slump next season or the second half or the playoffs, because paying a guy this much money, you definitely need a lot more production out of him. And now finally finishing out the video with the Florida Panthers. Now this is a team I was very excited to watch coming into this season. Obviously last year they had that remarkable second half run that made them fall just 2 points short of a playoff spot, and it would have been very impressive if they were able to get in, but me and I'm sure a lot of other people definitely thought that this year they would continue that play for the entire season and just have a really good year and make the playoffs. But it's been the opposite of that, and it's really disappointing because the Florida Panthers last year were very promising. 44, 30, and 8 for 96 points. Like I said, 2 points shy of a playoff spot, 4th in the Atlantic Division, and this year they just haven't really been able to get anything going. 23 wins, 24 losses, 8 overtime losses for 54 points, 6th in the Atlantic Division. Now, I think this is a team that definitely should do anything in their power to get a Sergei Bobrovsky or an Artemi Panarin, because I think Bobrovsky would really put this team over the edge and make them a playoff team, because their question mark really remains in goal. They have a pretty solid blue line. They have a great forward group. I think it really just remains in goal. Luongo's getting up there in age. I don't think James Reimer is a capable starter, and if you add Sergei Bobrovsky to a team with this good of a forward group and this decent of a back end, and I think they're pretty well coached, I honestly think that the Florida Panthers would be a very scary team. But for right now, if they don't fix that question mark in net, I don't really see them having a better year next year. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the Florida Panthers. I think they're in for a very busy offseason, but for me, they've just been very disappointing so far this season after having such a promising year last year. So that is going to wrap up the video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to let me know down in the comment section any teams or players that you've been disappointed with so far this season. And remember, like I said at the start, I'm not hating on any of these players or teams. I just definitely think they can give a lot more than what they've shown so far this season. So with that being said, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content. And I will see you guys all in the next video.